Hello, I'm gonna be talking today about a really little app called Classroom Screen that basically you can use in your lessons very nicely, which is extremely simple. You don't need to do much with it, and within 5 minutes you got something interactive, and I think it helps you a little bit with digital learning and the blended learning classroom basically. So what you can do is that you come to screen.com and you just launch a classroom screen. This is free. If you want to save your screens, basically that you will see in a minute, you will have to pay, I think it's £25 per year. I don't think it's necessary because most of the things that you can do basically things that you just do on the spot and you don't need to pay. But if you want to, you can have an account for a whole department, for example, if you want to. So this is how it looks like. You launch the classroom screen and this is where you end up with, basically. You end up with an interactive screen. And you're going to say, okay, this is very similar to what you will get with a smartboard. Yes, it is. So why would I use this? Because sometimes my students, I like to use, they get more engaged when I change things so they don't always see the same format. So we do the same thing in very different ways and they tend to respond very well, especially with retrieval practice, and they get more engaged, especially with low ability sets. And they like this idea of doing things differently, although in a sense it's the same thing, but they don't realize that for them it's something new. So it's an element here of innovation and is extremely simple. First thing you can do is choose your background. By chance it came up with that. It depends. You can choose something. You can choose a color. You just don't want a background. I tend to use, when I use this application, the Mexico, just because obviously I teach Spanish. And this is basically all the different gadgets and different little things that you can do with classroom screen. The first one I'm going to talk about is the random name. Actually, just by signing in with a classroom screen, you can have up to two. You can save two names. Name list. Okay, so the moment I got a year 9, this is from my last year and my year 10. Okay, so you can have that. So basically this is very simple. You get there, a name, and it will say someone will need to talk. I find that particularly quite boring to start with, really. So what I tend to do instead is that I use this application like this. What I do is I choose my random name, I get rid of all these names that I'm not going to use at all, okay, and instead, and there you are, so I get rid of that. Instead, what I do have is that I have maybe in Word, which I saved previously, a list of key verbs. Now, instead of key verbs, this could be equations. This could be keywords that you want the kids basically to retrieve. It could be topic based. It could be topics that you want the students to discuss at A level. You name it, whatever you want to. It could be ad hoc questions. So what you do here, basically, now I've got my list of names, and then I do exactly the same thing, but it's a little nice activity where this came up. I worked in a school. Someone now needs to answer that. If you want, you can have that together with. You can have both at the same time. So you can have in here, there's nothing to stop you to have this with a list of things, and then you can tell basically choose a person that needs to actually talk about that. That could be name groups, that could be whatever you want to. But the idea is the element of unpredictability that the kids actually like, and it's a little bit of a game. So this for me works better than just tell them translate that for me, for example. So that works quite well. So I like that one there. More things that you can find in here. You do have the dice version. I love this because I use dice a lot for games. We cannot use dice at the moment in the current situations. This is a perfect alternative. I can have one dice, I can have two dice, I can have three dice. One dice, very simple. How do you use the dice? You also have the text option. So you come here, you can move it wherever you want to. I like the text option. You can make it nice and big. Set as you want to. What I would do here, the same as I did before, I tend to come here with my name, with basically my list of verbs, and I number them basically. So now would be number 2, and this would be number 3, and this would be number 4, this would be number 5, and I would say here number 6. I would say I would like, for example, I would like to work. So the way I use this in lessons is, this is my name here, this is my dice. So we roll the dice is number 1. So you need to translate this, and I could have at the same time the random name here as well. So that could be put around here. And then I can just tell my students, okay, someone, okay, whoever gets the name, choose whoever it is the person with a phrase been there. Lauren, you need to answer number 1. As I said, I got verbs here, something very simple, but it could be something like questions, it could be keywords, it could be topics, it could be whatever you want to, you name it. Okay, so these are basically the imagination. That this is brilliant, I think, for retrieval practice and to revise the vocab that you want to impose on the kids. More things that you can use in here. You can have a link, so you may want to have something like that, and that will give you to a link, which I think is very, very useful. And what you can have as well is a stopwatch. So sometimes what I do is, I've done this with year 12s and year 13s, and they get topics here like immigration, like Spanish society, or key questions about feminism, whatever you want to. So imagine in a psychology lesson or in RS lesson, you can have all these topics, big questions on topics that you know you've been discussing on time. You roll your dice. You want to have a bigger list. You can have, obviously, you can have up to 18, but you would need to start on 3, obviously, because you would never get a 1. And then you have a stopwatch. So basically what you can do now is, like you said to the kids, okay, this is, the kids are in groups. You need to talk about topic number 6, which is about, the importance of, how the women were in Spanish society. And you need for that, you're going to be talking about that topic for the next 3 minutes. So it's a very good way to, and then you'll be moving around, etc. When the 3 minutes go back, you tell them stop, and it will actually stop it. Or instead of a stopwatch, you can have the timer, which is even better. And actually, you actually will hear the noise, the time is up. So basically the time and the stopwatch, very similar things. You also have the draw. With the draw, basically it's the same as the text, but with the difference that actually you can draw it. So what you have now is an interactive whiteboard, as you can see. What I like about the draw option is that you also got something like that. So for example, if it's maths, now you are in your interactive whiteboard, you got your pen, and then obviously you can draw here. You can have equations 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. You can have your number, and if you need a bigger, again, you can make it really, as big as you want to. You can choose the color that you want to use it. You can get rid of everything that you've done. You can go backwards, forwards, etc. You press this. I believe, yes, it creates the whole thing. Would be the whole board would be basically in that particular area. And yes, so basically that's a really good one. I think these are my favorite ones. You also got this is QR code. This is very useful as well, because what you do here is you can have any website, and it will convert it into, so if I say bbc.com, it will convert whatever you're pressing here into the QR code. Like the kids actually can just get with your phones. At the moment of using OneNote, this is a bit redundant because you can give them the link straight away in OneNote. But sometimes if you're in a lesson, you pull up, okay, it has happened to me that while they've been doing something, I found something in the internet very quickly. I don't have time just to put it into OneNote. So I've used this as well, and they can have access to it. So very good. You got a traffic light option as well, that you can, just to talk about how do you think you feel about the lesson, for example. So very simple way of doing activities, I find. that actually can make your lesson a little bit, spice up a little bit what you would normally do with your lessons. This particularly works great in a situation, for example, if we were in lockdown. When I was in lockdown through Teams, I didn't have obviously my interactive whiteboard then. The whiteboard from Teams was a little bit temperamental. It wasn't great, I found sometimes. So what I did during my lessons, I used to have my lesson with all the kids as a starter, as a plenary, used to be with classroom screen basically. So I used to prepare, as I said, my text, and I used to have a list of keywords, translations, things like that. I used to have the list of names here with the children, so I would make them talk, because when we were in lockdown, some of the kids wouldn't talk at all, or they were trying to really avoid it. So this allowed me to connect with the kids. They could obviously hear my voice. Everybody had to participate. They didn't know with the random name if they would get called. So everybody had to be alert, and everybody then could see basically the screen, and then they would go into working with OneNote. So this actually would work really well if we were put in lockdown again and you don't have your smartboard in front of you. Even if you have the software, sometimes it doesn't work as nicely. So yes, and otherwise I use it as a different thing of doing basically more of the same. So I hope you found it useful. As I said, if you want to save, you really like it and you want to save your screens, okay, at the moment you can see this is great because I am not, it says here, saving a screen is a pro feature, okay, so you can't, but the idea is that you can create lessons here and you can have all your different gadgets for every single lesson. You can also get rid of this as well if so you got more space in your screen. I don't think it's necessary because it's so simple that just having a Word document with a list or an Excel would be absolutely fine. So hopefully you found it. Thank you. As you found it useful, thank you very much.